Hi, my name is Barak, and I am going to show you how you can get significantly better at the SAT writing section, otherwise known as the ACT English section. These sections are nearly identical. There are really four things you need to master, and I'm going to show you very quickly with zero technical jargon how you can do that. We have to master the semicolon, the comma, the dash, and the colon. Okay, semicolon, you're going to be surprised. Most of my students, I'll ask them, how much do you hate the semicolon? And most students say, I super hate the semicolon. I'm going to show you that it's actually a very lovable thing. A semicolon on both tests is exactly the same thing as the period. So here's some examples. Question number 24. All right, I'm going to suggest that you pause every time there's a question up, and I will immediately give the explanation, but it would be really good if you could pause, try the question on your own. All right, so if we say that a semicolon is exactly the same thing as a period, okay, then we can say that all of these places where you see semicolons in A, which is called the no change answer, all right, that's a terrible place for a period. In B, there are two places that are a terrible place for a period, and in D, there's a terrible place for a period there as well. So the right answer has to be C. Now we're going to come back to this question later and look at why C is an excellent choice. Here's another example. You might want to pause for question number 12. All right, and here you can see again that not only is D a terrible place for a semicolon, but C is a terrible place for a semicolon. And because I said that a semicolon is exactly the same thing as a period, so you see how that, therefore, A and C would both be a perfect match, which would mean they would be identical answers, which means you could get rid of both answers. We're going to see this play out a number of times. The SAT is a consistent, reliable, and utterly predictable test. All right, and I'm going to show you just how much these tips are going to work for you. So right now we can get rid of A and C. We can get rid of D because that's a terrible place for a period. And therefore, the only correct answer would be B. All right, and we'll look at this one later in terms of why that is such a good option. Next one. So there's certain doubles, okay? So just the way that double parentheses means you could pull this out of the sentence. My friend Joe threw me the ball. So if I pulled that out, it would become my friend threw me the ball. But exactly the same way, you can have a double comma and a double dash. Those mean exactly the same thing as parentheses, and you can just pull them out, read the sentence smoothly, and that proves that you need one of these double options, okay? And we're going to see some examples now. So here, in question number 18, you may want to pause. I'll explain now. All right. Do you see here that, that if B is the right answer, that makes a double dash together with the dash so it creates a double dash, the purple for if still unexplained. All right. And in fact, there's a double comma in here too. So we can simplify the sentence. You're going to want to simplify sentences quite often. That takes the level of difficulty down from hard to easy. The SAT is really 3 tests, and same with the ACT. There are easy questions that almost everybody gets right. There are medium questions that about half get right and half get wrong. And then there are hard questions that almost everybody gets wrong. So if you want to take the level of difficulty down, just simplify the sentence. One very easy way to simplify the sentence is just to remove anything which is parentheses. Like, for example, the purple in the largest ever done on nuts and health. And then you could read the sentence as, the study confirmed a clear link between eating nuts and whatever. Okay, always simplify, always summarize, always compress. Use 10-year-old language. Use words like stuff, whatever, this guy, that guy. Okay, don't ever read people's names. But you see, if B is right, then that creates that second purple. Okay, if still unexplained is just parentheses, so we can pull it out and read it as, the study confirmed a clear link between eating nuts and whatever. All right. And you might have also noticed that with C, the semicolon is a terrible option. Always look at the semicolon option first because it's so easy. Once you know that a semicolon is exactly the same as a period, then you can always get rid of that quite easily. Next question, 42, you may want to pause. Okay, but let me explain what's going on here. All right, so D is obviously a terrible place for a period. Always get rid of the semicolon first, okay, or look at the semicolon first. Most of the time, they're going to be wrong answers. Occasionally, they're right. So take a look at that first, all right? But then, do you see that if we go with the correct answer, which is C, all right, then that creates parentheses around the database, whatever, okay? So once we pull that out and we can read it smoothly. One online publisher spends only $10, all right? Let's take a look at question 21, okay? Same thing. If we go with the correct answer, which is C, that creates that purple section there that we can pull out and then we can read the sentence smoothly. So the culmination came in 2010 when Newton Marshall became the first Jamaican to do whatever. All right. And later on, we'll explain what the rest of these colors are. We're going to revisit these questions. All right. Now we're getting to the colon. It's very technical, very easy, and it's not something that almost any high school student is ready to deal with. Okay, because this kind of a colon is different from the colons you'll see in real life. In real life, a colon introduces a list of things. On the ACT and SAT, they almost invariably introduce a single thing that elaborates on a full sentence. Okay, so the way this works, now a colon, by the way, is the same thing as a dash. Almost always. There are very, very rare exceptions to this. Almost everybody who's watching this video, your score will go up if you just say that, okay, a colon is exactly the same thing as a single dash. All right, so we have a full sentence, colon, then you elaborate. If there's no full sentence, a colon or a dash is illegal and you can instantly eliminate it. All right, so let's try an example. Let's say we would have a full sentence like this. When it's 100 degrees outside, there's only one thing in this world I'm dying for, colon. How would you finish that sentence? Well, one way you could do it is you could say ice cream. That would elaborate on what you meant. Okay, and we could have used a dash, just like I said, a dash ice cream. It's exactly the same thing in 99.9% of the cases. All right, here's another example. I had such a terrible night last night, colon. You see how that's a full sentence? Now, how could you finish that sentence? Well, you could say something like, I couldn't sleep. Okay, so that elaborates, what did you mean? It explains more about what did you mean that you couldn't sleep? Well, here's why I couldn't sleep. And that's why you could naturally use a word like because. Okay, I had a terrible night last night because I couldn't sleep, or I had a terrible night last night, colon, or dash, I couldn't sleep, but you cannot use both. All right, you have to choose one or the other to construct this sentence. All right. Now, let's take a look at some real examples from real tests. So if we look here at question number 35, all right, so you may want to pause. I'll explain now. And that is, do you see that, first of all, we can get rid of A and B because a semicolon is the same thing as period. So A would be solution, semicolon, and job, and B would be solution, period, job. So we can instantly eliminate half of the answer choices, which is nice. All right. And then the question is, does a colon work here? Well, yes, there's a full sentence, and then we explain what we mean by the creative solution. We mean job sharing. That's the creative solution. All right. Question number 16. So here again, it's a predictable test. It's a consistent and reliable test, but it's also predictable. And that's why we can get rid of A and B, because they are identical if you say that a semicolon is identical to a period, which it is. So we can get rid of A and B. And then you can clearly see that D, the colon, is illegal because it comes at the end of something which is not a full sentence. Only C comes at the end of a full sentence. Currently, only 2 power plants use this stuff. That's a full sentence. What do you mean? I mean one here and one there. One last example, question number 10. All right. So here, I told you that a colon is the same thing as a dash in almost all cases. So here we can remove A and D because they're identical. As colon is the same thing as dash. So we can remove half of the answers. And now you can clearly see that C, the semicolon option, is horrible. That's a terrible place for a period. Okay. And we can see that there's no need for any punctuation here at all. So B is the right answer. Another reason why A is a terrible answer is a colon cannot come at the end of a full sentence, and it has to come at the end of a full sentence, okay? And with A, then there's no full sentence right before the colon. Okay, actually, this will be the last one. Question 39. All right, do you notice what's going on here? So here, B looks reasonably good, but it combines the colon and the because. We can't have that, all right? A and D are obviously a match, so we can get rid of that. The colon and the because aren't good, and therefore the right answer is going to be C, all right? Let's take a look now at the last piece of punctuation that we'll explain, and that's the comma. Commas appear all over the place on both tests, and this will raise your score significantly. All right. Now, the good news is of the 3 types of commas, 2 of them are completely obvious. The first one, commas separate items in a list. That's totally obvious. You knew that already. All right. The second one we talked about already, the double comma is the same thing as parentheses, which means we can pull it out of the sentence and read the sentence smoothly. But the third one, this is not obvious, and this is going to raise your score. All right. The third example of a comma, which is the most common use of a comma on both tests, is that it separates full and partial sentences, and I'll show you some examples. All right. So here we could have, I like sushi. That's a full sentence, comma, now we'll need a partial, even though I'm allergic. All right. Or you could say it exactly the opposite and have a partial sentence like, even though I'm allergic, comma, I eat sushi every day, which is full. All right. And in fact, we can keep going. All right. So you see how we have blue, comma, green, comma, blue. All right. So even though I'm allergic, that's blue, that's partial, comma, I eat sushi every day, that's a full, comma, which is why there's always an ambulance at my house. All right. And we could really go on forever. And that's where this becomes fun, because we're changing the test from sort of a mystifying, bewildering experience to, okay, I know the rules, I can put them together in complex ways, and it can be kind of like solving a puzzle, which is really exciting and really interesting. And as you get better, the test will become more and more fun. Which is something which is absolutely true. And you will see as you get better at this, it can become, if you have the right attitude, completely fun. All right, so let's look at an example from a real test. Here's question number 6. Now, obviously, if we always look at the semicolons first, we can instantly eliminate B and C. Do you see how those are terrible places for a period? All right, and now the question is it D or is it A? Well, if we think of a comma, in this case, what we're using is a full and a partial sentence, okay? Separates the comma, is separating between a full and a partial. Then D creates the case where the green is full. About 12,000 people contributed. That's a full sentence, comma, enabling the band to record whatever. That's a partial. All right. What's wrong with A? So A creates a full, comma, full, which is illegal. Okay. About 12,000 people contributed. That's a full, comma. This enabled the band to do whatever. All right. That's also a full. So A is gone. All right. Now let's come back to a question we looked at before. All right. And here we just to refresh your memory, we earlier said that A, B, and D are terrible places for semicolons, so we can eliminate them, and that makes C the right answer. But here I want to illustrate why it's the right answer. So C creates a situation where we've got a full sentence in green, comma, partial. All right. And you see that within the partial, we've got a comma list. Taking scrupulous notes, during hearings, comma, depositions, comma, and other stuff. All right. So this is, we're starting to get more and more complex. And as the questions get harder and harder and harder, and fewer students are getting them right, then they become more and more interesting and much more of a brain teaser. Let's take a look, for example, at this question here, which we looked at earlier, which was question number 12. All right, so just to refresh your memory, we got rid of A and C because those were a perfect match. And then D was a terrible place for a semicolon, meaning a period. All right, so the right answer we said was B. Now, why is B the right answer? Well, if we look at the markup here, we can see that it's blue, comma, green, comma, blue. And that's what B does if we're separating between full and partial sentences. So each year, that's obviously a partial. Many species of shorebirds do whatever. That's clearly a full. And then the last one, comma, a journey of thousands of kilometers. That's clearly a partial. Okay, so with these techniques, you can get many, many questions right. Let's take a look at an even more complex one. This is the one we looked at earlier, 42, which we said we can remove the purple because C creates a double comma, which means parentheses, which means we can remove it and read it smoothly. But once we remove the purple, courtesy of those two commas, then that other comma just creates a classic full green comma partial in blue. One online publisher spends only $10. That's a full comma. An expense covered by donations, that's a partial. All right, here's another example, very similar, something we looked at earlier, question 21. If we pull out the purple, okay, courtesy of the right answer, which is C, then we've got a green, which means a full sentence, then a partial, very long partial, which I marked in blue. When Newton Marshall became the first Jamaican to do whatever. All right, hopefully this is starting to make sense. Okay, most important rule with commas is when in doubt, just leave them out. All right, and this means whenever you see an option like question 42, all right, you see option D. So this one has no commas at all. Always look at that option first, because even though it might be long, it's generally, let's just say most of the time, or more often than not, a lack of commas completely is the right answer. All right. And I think that this should help you in terms of being able to do far better on both the ACT English, the SAT writing. Okay. And with these techniques, you can practice, and you're going to see that many, many, many of the grammar questions on these sections become so much easier to do. Thank you so much for watching. If you could like and subscribe, that would be terrific. And I've got a demo class every week that we're going to put in the comments below. If you want to just see a no-charge demonstration class about other ways that you can get so much better at this very, very predictable test, we would love to see you. Thank you so much. I have the greatest job in the world, and it's all because of you.